Alhaji Lai Mohammed, Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, thank you so much for joining us on today's program.
It's a pleasure, Osasu.
Thank you so much. So the internet, as we say, it is undefeated in the sense that they take a serious subject and spin it into something very trivial and jovial. Your name is one example that comes to mind, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. A lot of young people on the internet have distorted that to Alhaji Lai Mohammed, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. How does this make you feel? And are you guilty of telling little white lies to favor this government?
No, I think I carry two major burdens. The first burden I carry is that I was the face of the opposition for almost a decade. And I think quite a big section of the internet has not forgiven me for the role I played in the coming in of this government. Many of them hold me personally responsible for the defeat of the PDP. I'm flattered by that. But the truth is that it was Nigerians that wanted a new government, and that was just, you know, one of the instruments.
But are you guilty of telling little white lies to curry favor for this administration?
Osasu, you see...
Osasu, sorry.
Osasu, I have always asked anybody to come out and say, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, this is what you've said at this point, and we found it to be a lie. And nobody so far able to come out with anything. You can fault me on emotions, but you can never fault me on facts and figures.
Let's talk about the achievements of this government thus far. Two particularly come to mind, security and corruption. We've seen a drastic improvement in the security situation across the country, and the fight against corruption has been truly applaudable, given the whistleblower policy that has been effective so far. Are there other achievements that you believe are missing from this list I've read out?
Well, what you have done really is that you have simply...
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what we have done so far is that you have simply, I would say, in general, said this is, this is what we've achieved. I think it would be important for us to go into each of these areas for people to actually appreciate what has been achieved. And if you've covered the economy, you've covered infrastructure, you've covered fighting corruption, you've covered security, there's very little more in governance. But unless you actually put facts and figures to these issues, you will never know exactly how much we have done. In fighting corruption, for instance, people don't appreciate the focus of this government. The focus of the government in fighting corruption is not necessarily to stigmatize anybody or any name, but to let people know what has been the cause of corruption to our lives. Only yesterday at the Federal Executive Council meeting, the Honorable Minister of Niger Delta brought a memorandum which was discussed. And it was so shocking to learn from that memorandum that between 2009 and 2016, about 700 billion naira was appropriated in the Ministry of Niger Delta alone. Of this, over 453 billion naira had been paid out. But when you compare the money paid out to amount of work done, it's shocking that only 12% of work has been completed.
Wow.
Now, it's shocking also to note that the effect on that region has only been 8%. And we're not talking about other intervention funds such as the NDDC and the like. We're just talking about what transpired, what happened in the Ministry of Niger Delta.
So now this administration is looking to bring those perpetrators to book.
Absolutely.
Awesome. But now let's speak about some of the, I guess, what Nigerians are feeling the most, the failures of this administration. Specifically, the Ministry of Power Works and Housing. Driving through the streets of Abuja from my office home when I leave the office at about 8 p.m., the streets are pitch black, right? I have to turn on my full beams just to see where I'm going. That's just you know, and 1 out of 182 million, right? They're going through these power issues. So we understand that the issue in the power sector stems from both the generation companies to the distribution companies to the transmitter companies. We understand that. But do you agree that the Minister of Power Works and Housing has failed to provide the much expected 10,000 megawatts that was promised to us during your campaign?
Absolutely not. And it's very unfair and very unkind for anybody to say so. What was the power situation when we came in? 2,690. I repeat, 2,690 megawatts. What was the power in February 2016? 5,014 megawatts. Then after which we suffered irreparable losses when the Escavos, export pipeline was destroyed. As we speak today, as a result of banalization, we've lost permanently 1,000 megawatts. 2, despite that, what is the level of power today? Almost 4,000 megawatts. And that's because we have to look elsewhere to find power. Now, and what has the government done since we came in? Number one, you must understand the fact that that's why we came in, that privatized power.
Yes.
Privatized distribution, GENCO, and contracted out the transmission. Of course, we had the option of reversing the entire privatization scheme, but we refused to take that route because it would be sending a wrong signal to the international community and to the investment community. And we said to say, what can we do with it? No, how can we handle a very bad situation?
So what is the government's role in power generation? Because you did state in an interview that the government today has minimal control over the power situation in the country. But yet you invest or you inject 701 billion naira into a sector that you have no control, minimal control over.
Because as a government, we have responsibility for the welfare of the people.
Exactly, and it's your responsibility to ensure that we have that.
And for God's sake, Osasu, can't you understand the basic thing? We don't generate.
Yes.
We don't distribute.
But you just said it's your responsibility to ensure that basic essentials are given to Nigerians.
Now, for instance, if there's an emergency we're not responsible for, there's a flood, doesn't the government come in? Is the government responsible for that flood? There's an earthquake, doesn't the government come in? Is he responsible for that? As a responsible government, we saw that this is a very bad situation we inherited. That privatization was badly done. It's either they had no capacity or no understanding of the industry. Now, we're going to allow Nigeria to rust in darkness simply because a past government made that kind of mistake. That is why we intervened.
Let's go specifically now to the 10 billion naira that was captured in the 2016 budget for the IDPs. We have no idea how this money was, if this money was released, how it was implemented, how it was used. There's no transparency whatsoever.
Because what is happening what happened in the Northeast, the result of insurgency, is an humanitarian disaster of a global scale, and no one government in the world can address it. Not one. I was one of the earliest witnesses when I went to Burma in 2015 December, and I saw the scale of destruction. I did not believe what I saw. So 10 billion naira looks a lot. Oh yes, but in terms of...
If you can manage 10 billion, you can manage 100 billion. So how was 10 billion implemented? How was it used? Where is the transparency?
For God's sake, you see, this is what I resent. When you make baseless accusations that say that 10 billion naira was implemented. What are your facts on 10 billion naira?
10 billion naira was appropriated in the 2016 budget to the IDP.
And how much then was funded of it?
That's my question to you. There is absolutely no communication. We've reached out to the National Assembly to show us a breakdown of how 10 billion naira was implemented, whether it was released or not.
If I were you, what I would do is tell the National Assembly to know how much was released.
That's
you
exactly
go to Ministry
what
of Finance.
You, Honorable Minister.
I'm not the Minister of Finance.
We've written to the Ministry of Finance, we've written to the National Assembly, we haven't heard anything. You are the Minister of Information.
No, Osasu, I'm the Minister of Information. Yeah. I'm not an encyclopedia, and I will know how much was released for,
But do you agree that a level of transparency should be included in this release of funds? I
can tell you that this government is the most transparent that has ever come. I can lay my reputation on that. So when people talk about transparency, we are number one in terms of transparency.
Can I count on you that the 45 billion that was appropriated in this 2017 budget will be more transparent than the last year, than the previous year, the release of this?
That's even the wrong assumption. I am saying that even last year, there was transparency. So the issue of being more transparent is not even right. The fact that you have not been able to get the figures does not mean it's not transparent.
So can you give me those figures maybe after this interview?
Of course, yes. I will ask the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much. That will publish, we'll publish that on our website following this interview. So let's quickly move on. We don't have much time. There is disappointment and anger in Ogoni land. Expectedly, because on June 2nd, 2016, the acting president went there to commission the official cleanup of the oil spillage in Ogoniland. 1 year after the flag off, not a single drop of oil has been cleaned from Ogoniland.
A lot has been done. There are preparations. There will be procedure for procurement. There will be, logistics to be handled. And I think the last time I had is that I think they've gotten to the level of procurement, because what government said was that as soon as we put in place the governing bodies for the two organizations, then the donors, I think largely Shell, will now be able to, bring the donation, and also the federal government will bring its own. But to say that, yes, one drop of oil might not have been cleaned, but it does not mean that.
But are you aware that people are dying from breathing in that toxic air?
Are you also aware that before 2016, the report of that UNEP was sitting down unattended to, and we took the...
Nigerians are not debating the fact that the past administration failed woefully.
I'm not saying
that is a given fact. We've seen that. But now this administration is in charge.
You see, for God's sake, Osasu, some things are not just like, Nescafe that you put in water and you drink. There are procedures even for procurement. There are procedures even for awarding contract. And you'll be the same person that will be talking about transparency. What I can assure you, and I think I wish that I knew I would have spoken to the Honorable Minister of State, for instance, for environment, to give me what progress has been made so far. But I know that the last time this matter was discussed at council, it was that they were nearing the stage of procurement.
So after 2 years into this administration, the government is still nearing a stage of procurement for cleanup of Ogoni land. So let's hope that a year from now, some work would actually be done. But let's move on to Article 39 of the Constitution, which states that every person shall be entitled to freedom of expression, including freedom to hold opinions and to receive and impart ideas and information without interference. Despite this constitutional provision, Nigeria has again recorded a decline in the International Press Freedom Index, with 6% regression between 2016 and 2017. Now we rank par in par with countries like Afghanistan, Chad, Philippines, Zimbabwe, Colombia, and others. What's your response to this?
Of course, you also know that we contested that report is wrong. If that report were right, you would not be here talking to me, you would not be here asking questions, and I will not be here replying you.
Honorable Minister, that's not true. President Muhammadu Buhari's chief security officer, Bashar Abubakar, chased out the State House correspondent of Punch newspaper for covering the president's ill health. That was the first one. The second one, these are just simple instances that has happened to prove our point. The Nigerian police charged a blogger along with a Port Harcourt-based reporter for cybercrime after an elite pastor complained that she defamed his character in a post. The journalists were kept in prison for a week before they were granted bail, and this journalist has been rearrested again. In January, the police stormed the head office of an online newspaper in Abuja and arrested the publisher alongside the paper's judiciary correspondents for writing stories which the authorities described as exposing a deep hatred for the leadership of the Nigerian army. That's a third instance. The fourth one, the publisher of another online newspaper was also harassed. Let me know when you want me to stop.
No, I'll take it one by one.
Was also harassed by...
Just stop there. Take one by one. Number one, you see, it pains me when people are patently dishonest. The first instance, Bashar threw out the Punch correspondent. Immediately, he was overruled by the president's special advisor to Mr. President of Media, and he was returned immediately. If one person does something, another arm of government corrects it immediately, then you cannot hold that government as a whole to be irresponsible.
Okay.
Or to be. Two, let me tell you, the fact that there's freedom of expression does not mean that you can trample as you want on my own rights.
You didn't address the arrest by the Nigerian
You are not listening.
No. You didn't address the arrest by the Nigerian army
for exhibiting deep hatred for the army.
So because you write against the army, all of a sudden...
No. And because you see, certain writings against the army, against certain institutions, could really upset disrupt the polity.
But would you agree that the freedom of the press is under attack in this administration?
No. And I said emphatically, no. How many people have we arrested, this government? How many people are in jail? How many people are standing trial? How many people have been persecuted? No.
We did fall off the ranking. I know you said you're debating, contesting
because I know it is not true. I know it's not true.
So you don't believe in the ranking system? You don't believe in the Reporters Without Borders and the World Press Freedom Ranking?
They're not infallible. They're not infallible.
Okay, no problem. Let's move on. The government has flouted court rulings to release Sambo Dasuki, El Zakzaki, and until very recently, Nnamdi Kanu. Let's take off your ministerial hat for a moment. Alhaji Lai Mohammed, Minister of Information and Culture. Let me just talk to you as a reasonable Nigerian. How do you defend this level of impunity?
What do you call impunity? You see, every government will balance national security with human rights. Every country in the world. It is the level of the balancing.
So the government is justified to flout court rulings? Balancing is when you have a three-tier government, the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive. When did the executive start doing the judiciary work? When did they describe or when did they consider the judiciary as comatose, invalid?
Osasu, I say, as a government, I will balance national security against your human rights.
So to hell with the courts.
And I'll take a decision. Because it's because there's security, there's stability, that the courts also exist.
So to hell with the courts?
No. Now, what I'm saying that the court has ruled, but the court does not have the entire picture. The
court does not have the entire picture?
When it comes to national security, yeah. I'm a lawyer too. And therefore, I have the utmost respect.
So you're saying the executive arm should be the judge and the jury?
No.
Because they have privileged information from national...
No, I'm not saying that. You see, you can't pick 2, 3 cases which border on national security to condemn a whole government and say this government is a government of impunity. How many cases are determined daily in Nigeria?
Honorable
How
Minister,
many cases are government involved in?
An injustice to one is an injustice to all. Whether it's 2 cases, whether it's 3 cases. The government is flouting court orders.
I still say,
even the International Criminal Court.
I still say this, that every government in the world has that, right to balance national security.
Okay, let's move on, Honorable Minister. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant Buratai, brought to the attentions of Nigeria that an alleged coup was in the works. He said he sent out a stern warning to soldiers who were hobnobbing with politicians to desist from such or face immense consequences. This wouldn't happen if the president was in the country, would it?
Let me ask you a question. Is it only when the president is not in the country?
In a democracy,
we know
of the military regime and the coups that have happened. But don't you agree that due to the president's absence, this has emboldened these soldiers to do such?
No.
Is the president fit to continue leadership?
Absolutely.
According to Article 141 of the Nigerian Constitution, as amended in 1999, The president or vice president shall cease to hold office if A, by resolution passed by 2/3 majority of all members of the Executive Council of the Federation, it is declared that the president or vice president is incapable of discharging the functions of his office. B, the declaration is verified after such medical examination as may be necessary by a medical panel established under subsection 4 of this section in its reports to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. 2, where the medical panel certifies in the report that, in its opinion, the president or vice president is suffering from such an infirmity of body or mind as renders him permanently incapable of discharging the functions of his office, a notice, therefore, signed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives shall be published in the official gazette of the Government of the Federation. Lastly, number 3, the president or vice president shall cease to hold office as from the date of publication of the notice of the medical report pursuant to subsection 2 of this section. Isn't this probable cause for impeachment?
There must be. The executive must pass by 2/3 majority.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about the process because I just read that to you. I said, isn't this probable cause for impeachment? The president's ill health. He hasn't been in the country, what now? The first one was 50 days. The second one now is indefinitely.
Is there any provision of the Constitution that says that if the president is away from the country,
is ill, we know the president is sick. If we do not know the president's illness, how do we know that it hasn't rendered him permanently incapable?
Oh, you cannot say a president that daily communicates with his vice president on issues of governance.
Daily?
Yes. Okay. Yes. On the acting president, daily is infirm or incapable of.
But how can the public judge that? Do you know the nature of Mr. President's illness?
I don't.
How would the ministers know whether or not the president is incapacitated if they are not having direct contact with him? That is what I'm telling you. No, you are saying he's speaking only directly to the vice president.
Number one, the ministers must be convinced that the president is infirm.
I'm glad that we're on the same page.
And I'm saying that as of today, the ministers are convinced that the president has capacity.
Why?
Because they know, because they talk to him. Many of them talk to him.
When last did you speak to the president?
I spoke to him the day he traveled. But I know many ministers who have spoken to him after that. And I've spoken to, and I consult. And I know that Mr. President is in firm control of his faculties, and that the issue of resolution would never arise as of today. That is the thing.
Okay, Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us on today's program.
You're welcome.
We hope you will exceed when next we call on you.
Why should I? Why?
Why should you or why should you not?
Why should I not? Accept? Why not?
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
I called you today. You didn't call me, so
we truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. So that's it for today's program of the Osasu Show. We've been assessing the 2-year achievements and failure of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. To watch extended clips from this interview, you can visit our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at The Osasu Show, at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll see you same time, not the same place, back in our studios next week. And until then, take very good care of yourself. God bless you.